Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am.
How are you tonight, sir?
I am quite all right, actually.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's been a rather eventful weekend. I'll just say that right out front. And we are here to kick off a brand new marathon. And as I brought up at the end of last week's episode, we did a very minor mini marathon of this last year, which we didn't really have a title for. It was just two shows, and it was just a small run to see how it felt for June, and it kind of went all right. It went better than expected. So we decided, you know what, we don't really have that much ever planned for June, really. Let's toss this in there uh, as a staple for future marathons, well, future years, and do something for Pride, and that's what we decided to, and that's how we're going to kick off our Pride or Die marathon, where we're going to be looking at films of the LGBTQ horror films, that is, and we decided we had a bunch of titles written down, and we read over them, and I just went to you and like Ian, which one do you want to do? And here you are picking probably the most easiest one of the bunch. But none, we don't know these until we watch them, and but that's the fun of it, and just the camaraderie that we have. And the film in question to kick off this monthly marathon is Big Easy Queens, and I think I know why you picked this one because if it has a musical numbers, you're all about it. And so Big Easy Queens, how shall I say put it? It's very last year we reviewed Slay and sort of how that one was like uh, a drag version of From Dusk Till Dawn. With of course, there's some musical numbers in there. There's more dance routines because the troupe did all the dancing and stuff at the biker bar,
Yeah.
and so this one is more. I don't know. It's a cross. It's not. We'll get into it, but we're introduced to a handful of characters. This is taking place in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and we're introduced to Minnie Bouvier. I'm just going to call her Minnie, and she runs this bar where she's able to perform and sing. She has her keyboardist and her bassist and guitarist behind her, so she performs every night or the weekends whenever it takes place. And there's a lot of sort of history with uh, those around her and in the vicinity of the bar that she runs. And so we're also introduced to, um, in a sense, Jackson is a. She has like a. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but she has a little sidekick called Giuseppe that kind of helps her out and does things around the bar. Um, and she's like taking him under her wing and just like I wouldn't say grooming him, but just like helping out, like he's like a right hand guy. And all of a sudden, Jackson comes back into her life, and Jackson is her previous lover. And there's this whole backstory of her and Jackson eloping, getting I don't know if they were getting married, but they were together and they were pretty hand in hand. And then um, all of a sudden he got the hots for her sister Mimi and left Minnie during her pregnancy because she's coming out of the house. She has a little bit of a baby bump, and I guess something happens where she lost the child. I'm assuming it doesn't really give you that much information on it. Just like she was pregnant at one point in time, and she doesn't have a child now. So something happened. Um, so Jackson's back into her life, and this causes Mimi to get back into Minnie's life, in a sense, because she's kind of finding out like Jackson's back into her life and thinks that he's having an affair on her, which sort of does happen. And Mimi goes to Poodles, who is the other head honcho in this small New Orleans town. So basically, it's you have two rival crime lords, but they're in drag in a sense. So you have Poodles and Minnie. And so they're sort of butting heads. And so Poodles tells Mimi, listen, I can help you if you become my pet. I'll be able to help pay for whatever you need done uh, to become a part of what I have going on here. And Poodles also has, her pet in the cage. I wouldn't say it's a cage, but it's a cage hanging above her seat, and also her right hand man, Amos. And so Mimi decides to go to the bar that Minnie owns, and they sort of have a bonding experience, and so they do that because at the same time all this is happening, there's a hit out where this masked figure is going around trying to kill Minnie. So there's like this big bulky dude in a mask. He's knocking things off the roofing. There's like a gargoyle statue that falls off, tries to hit her. A lot of things like that. Mugging that happens, and so there's all these little intricate little plot devices scattered throughout the film, and it's basically Minnie trying to find out what's happening, Mimi coming back into the life with the whole affair thing and trying to get comeuppance on Minnie, and then you have Poodles trying to play and slither her way into the whole ordeal. All the while, there's this underlying threat happening as the film progresses, and that's the gist of what I can say without going too further into spoilers. And overall, again, I didn't mind it, but I wasn't the biggest fan of this film. Um, I thought it was well done and well shot, and they had um, a plan, and it looked again it was shot well, and they had a plan, but it for what it's worth, it wasn't fully a horror film in the sense of what we like to discuss on the show. It is more, you know, more soap opera esque uh, plot devices than horror film. Not to say again, I probably watch this again over any soap opera, um, but I wasn't, it didn't grasp me or pull my attention in as it should have, because again, I was hoping for a little bit more in the realm of horror. There's a few moments, glimmers of horror, where there's actual, um, I wouldn't say body horror, but like there's like someone getting their lips sewn together and it's practical effect, which looks pretty, for what it is, it's fine. And then there's like a gallon of blood being splashed on a person, um, and that's fine. But full on, comedy horror, not to the fullest extent that you would have liked. Not to say it wasn't terrible, it was bad. It was fine. It was serviceable. The musical numbers, I wasn't the biggest fan of them as, say, other films that we reviewed with musical numbers. Um, but it served its purpose. I think it was just, again, I was expecting a little bit more from it with the details of being, bringing in voodoo and then zombies and stuff. Like I was thinking there's going to be more to it than what actually happened. Not to say what
Yeah.
actually happened wasn't terrible, bad per se. It was just less than I anticipated it to be. Um, but again, I didn't mind it. Again, I appreciate the grandeur of everything that they were able to create. There's like this whole, intricate like world building that they created, with Minnie and the bars and uh, Poodles and her background, and so there was this world building and sort of history and lore of that particular, um, I wouldn't say, I guess, revenge plot, um, of both of them and like how they're rivals and butting heads and all that stuff, and how Mimi comes in there and does her thing and opens up a whole nother thing, um, and then how the film eventually goes. So again, they do a good build up of everything, but and the idea of everything is very grand in nature, grandiose, and I just expected a little bit more from it than what we got. Again, it is more comedy than it is horror per se. Again, I didn't mind it, but I did expect a little bit more from it. So, Ian, I'll give you your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth and possibly get into spoilers after that.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun with this movie just because of its goofiness. I
Yeah,
thought it was, it was very, it was very silly. Um, very tongue in cheek. It didn't take itself seriously, which has been great. I hate when movies like this take themselves too seriously, and it just, you know, throws the tone completely off. Um, you kind of see where everything was going from the beginning, but I still I still enjoyed it. The musical numbers were kind of fun. I thought. I mean, they weren't like the best, but they were still, pretty. Had a little fun with it. They had made sure to like get in some zingers and uh one lines, and just it was just mostly a very comedic movie. Um, I liked the way the the effects were. It didn't look the best, but it fit the vibe for this movie. Um, it, I don't know. It was just generally like pretty straightforward film.
yeah, sort
It's
of
not like,
lighthearted.
yeah, it's not like the most complex movie.
No, that's the
Uh,
reason I said like very soap opera esque, because it's just
yeah,
like it has the same ideas that you would see in a soap opera. Like, how dare you do this, and they want to do that, and it's a lot of affairs and cheating and scandals and stuff like that. It's very of its
yeah,
nature, but like throw in drag queens and glamorous outfits and musical numbers, and then you have this voodoo, all that stuff.
yeah. And it's there's like not a whole like there's a lot that happens, but there's not a whole lot to the movie. It's mostly just like this person going here, this person talking to this person, people reconnecting, a tragedy happens, somebody's trying to kill somebody, and it kind of just follows that same pattern throughout the entire movie where it's very simplistic, and there's a lot of like minor details that happen that like are kind of spoiler heavy. Um, and this is still pretty new, so I don't really want to go too deep into spoiler territory. But um, I thought the lore was pretty interesting, like the the queens of New Orleans waging war against each other. Um, like lovers and enemies. It was a fun little watch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't, again, it wasn't terrible or anything. It was just I expected a little bit more from it, and even the musical
Same.
numbers. I just like it. Kind of reminded me of like Anna and the Apocalypse. Like the zombie stuff was fine, and then we got to the musical numbers, and it's just like, man, you could have done better instead of doing that High School Musical crap. Like this one, like it kind of like didn't really like pull you in like the songs or what a what they're trying to, you get, uh, what they were trying to convey to the viewer. Like I just
Yeah.
like plus there need to be more of them if they're gonna go all out. Like there's like two, maybe three, and just like very just straightforward in their nature. There's the very one that Minnie opened up with, and then it doesn't happen again until you have the history with Jackson and like the love that she had for him and the backstory there, and then that was about it. There's like there could have been more, and it's not like full on breakout musical montages. This is just like, oh, now here comes a song. So it's like I kind of like you could have went more musical montage, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
but again, there wasn't for the zombie aspects where I expected like, oh, they're gonna raise the dead up or something. No, it just they turned one person into a voodoo zombie, and then soon after that brought on, like there was two people that was like voodoo zombies, and then they brought them right back to human form. So it's like there is a interesting means to convey like, oh, we're in New Orleans, we can turn people into voodoo zombies. Um, the black magic stuff. Like they could have done that a little bit more efficiently. But it was more just the whole revenge aspect and comeuppance and um, the big reveal at the end and the reasoning for everything. As you said, it's very on the nose. I mean, if they pretty much kind of force feed it to you, like this is there. It's not going to be anything different from this. It's pretty
Yeah.
fairly obvious. Um, which again, it's kind of dampens the film a little bit because you're just sitting there expecting something else. Like it's just going to be that, isn't it? And then it's that. Um, it's just very pedestrian in its sense. Like it has this grand scale and scope of things, but it's just very pedestrian in its storytelling. And again, I don't mind that. I just expected a little bit more from everything. Like I expected more flamboyance, more grandeur, and it was just like the look and tone of everything looked great. Again, the set piece of the bars, both minis and poodles. Like I liked all that, but it's just like very rudimentary. Just like ugh, you could have done so much more, and like this more scope and scale that you have built this little tiny little world of New Orleans that you have this small city town, of opposite ends of the city maybe, and he just barely do anything with it. And that's just like again, everything else is fine, and but it just like felt like it just kind of it slipped through their fingers a little bit. Like they managed, it was like all, like I wouldn't say all story, like all story, no substance in a sense. Best way I can put it. Like all substance, no story, one of the two. Um, and again, I expected just a little bit more, but again, I didn't hate it. It was just one of those watches where I was just like, this is fine. This is it's just moving along perfectly fine. I don't hate anything about it really. Um, it just wasn't as engrossing as I kind of hoped it would for a film like this. Like Slay. Like Slay, surprised both of us, I think, because you didn't expect much out of it, and then it just grabbed you and pulled you in with the whole From Dusk
Oh
Till
yeah.
Dawn vibe. Um, and like everything else is like, yeah, this is great, and solid for what it is. And this one, like there wasn't no extra thing to pull you in, like the vampires in Slay, or the demon in Ganymede, and the whole underlying cause and effect of that film had. Um, like this one is just like it's just revenge, and they don't really do too much with it, and it just kind of falls through the cracks a little bit, and just like you could have added an extra little feature, to really bring it home. You could have had more, you know, bring in, of course, like I think Poodles is sort of in the whole black magic thing, but they could have done more, bring in another like witch doctor or something into the mix instead of just like doing it themselves. Like if they added like the extra character to do things like what they were doing with the voodoo puppet, um, they could have like done that. But it's just like, oh, we already know what to do, so there's no reason for it. Like okay, but they just needed like a little. I mean, they already had a lot of characters, but it just felt like they needed another, just offshoot, sort of voodoo priestess or something to come in there and do its thing and help out whoever on either side to get revenge. It just felt like it needed an extra something.
Yeah. I did think it definitely needed a little bit more.
Because it is short, man. It's like 75 minutes, so it is super short.
Yeah. Yeah, it was um pretty quick. It does like, or at least, for me, it, completely grabbed me in. And like I felt like, you know, um like it didn't overstay its welcome too much in some scenes. Like I was intrigued of what was going to happen next, and it kind of dragged, like definitely dragged me in, pun intended. Um, so it was a nice watch. I honestly had lower expectations going into this. I had to tell myself, I was like, this isn't going to be probably going to be another Slay, but it really was like a fine, decent watch.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just wish they would do more with the zombies. There was a lot they could have done, and they almost fixed their own problem in one scene. Had they got, you know, not to give any spoilers, but there is a scene where they almost fixed their own problems.
yeah. And also, I mean, it does kind of fall in on itself if you really think about it, because Mimi watches that happen, and like how does that person survive if she watched that happen? Like I don't. It just seems like it shouldn't actually be a problem, but it's just outlandish in that regard, where it's just like, surprise. So it just seems like one of those like spoof. I wouldn't say spoof, but it just felt like something you would see in a parody film, where it's like someone explode, but then they're okay the next scene. It just felt like that in certain instance in that scene in general. But yeah, like it's perfectly fine and serviceable. It kind of, again, like I go back to Slay and how like that had the vampire aspect, and you go, and even Queens of the Living Dead and how that had the zombie aspect with their the whole stage show, and that the whole gimmick of that film as well, and like how the characters in that film sort of like were boisterous and everything leading up to like the big performance, because that one had like the one that didn't the drag queen that hasn't performed in years, and is the whole build up to her performing again, um, and then she does it with the horde of zombies around her. So it's like there needed to be something a little bit extra in this one, just to bring it home, and not just like, oh, we're just gonna turn our rival into a zombie and walk her to a hearse. It just felt like you could have done more. I mean, if you wanted to get revenge, it just, like I said, it just needed something extra, and just not like brushed off like the zombie aspect in this film. It's just there for like, hey, this would be cool because we're in New Orleans. Let's have certain characters turn into zombies. Let's put them under the spell and turn them into zombies. Um, and it was, again, like, it was perfectly serviceable. I mean, for an opening, again, for this marathon, it's a fine opener. I think this is good. Sets the pace of like, okay, this is where we're at. Hopefully, we can reach above the bar and see what else comes next. Um,
Yeah.
but it is, it's perfectly, right down the middle. It doesn't, if you're into the community, I mean, it's a perfectly fine watch. It doesn't really. It just needed more. Again, I keep saying, prefacing that is just like, I do think it just needed something extra, um, to make it feel fuller, because it just felt even the musical numbers just felt lacking in that regard. And when you have like two things that like you're promising and like that's just like sort of second nature. I mean, it's just like you kind of slip through the cracks there with like what you're promising with the zombies and musical numbers. Like the comedy is okay. I mean, it's as you said, Ian, it's goofy and silly and not supposed to be taken seriously. And I mean, I guess that's reason for the whole. Again, the scene in general with the bloodshed, like it's not supposed to be taken seriously. Um, but again, it's very, as I said, it's sort of you know soap opera, telenovela. Oh, how dare you! I'm gonna get comeuppance. I need help. Goes to another family, goes to a bigger person to get help, and then the siblings bond, and then there's another underlying threat that gets revealed at the very last act, which is ridiculous. But again, like I said, it's fine. It's not as grandiose as I kind of hoped it would have been for a film with like you know drag queens in general. I wanted something you know big and boisterous, and it just like it had everything, all the markings and inklings of that, like all the costumes and the dresses and like the set pieces, and like it looked good in the scope of things, but it just missing like key aspects to make it even prominent to like, okay, now we're talking something, now it really pulls me in and not just conversation. And like again, I get the conversations and it's very heartwarming, and like because like the characters are going through turmoil and uh grief and um you know two sisters falling for the same man and all that stuff, and just like butting heads and just sort of that retribution against each other, or the rebellious aspect of Mimi. But it just needed something a little bit extra to really bring it on home for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Um, there's just like some elements missing. If they could have done the whole voodoo thing, I feel like they could have done it sooner. Um, and I kind of wish they, you know, turned it into like the last little bit, like a zombie battle or something like that, just to give it that extra oomph to really put it into the more of the horror category.
Yeah, sort of like how they did with like American Horror Story Coven. How the zombies come into that one. I think there's some zombies in that one. Um, when they're having that battle towards the last act of the season. So it's like it just comes in to help for a little bit, little battle here and there.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched Coven.
It just needed something besides a big reveal, and just like haha, big Scooby Doo reveal in a sense.
Yeah,
It kind of did have that Scooby Doo vibe, also in a sense. The live action movie more so than the cartoons, because it just had that sort of that younger audience, younger adult sort of look and feel to it, with of course more adult themes. I'll just say that. Um, but again, it's a serviceable watch. It just again, it's just lacking in certain aspects, and it just really, it's not one that really pulls your attention in as one would hope it would. But it's a fine watch. I mean, like I said, it's right down the middle. I like some of the aspects of it. I wish they just, again, the look and feel of everything is great for what they're trying to do, but it's just like, again, it was very just soap opera, telenovela. Just feel like I'm gonna get revenge. How dare you take my lover? How dare you have an affair? I'm gonna go to someone higher up and get that, but wait, there's more. Here's an extra reveal on top of that with underlying stuff that's been happening. It's just, again, just very soap opera esque in that regard. But again, with a drag quality to it.
Yeah. I get what they were trying to do, you know, um, with the drag queens and everything. But I kind of was hoping that it was just drag queens, not them, being like an old Shakespearean play kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it was a character in drag playing a female character. But I mean, that's just like a small, like, what I was expecting and kind of hoping when we were going into this, but not that I'm like completely disappointed by the fact that it was the way it was.
No, I mean, you can tell they had fun making it, and again, that shows throughout. I mean, they really, wanted to make this. They had this idea and vision, and you can tell that they're having fun. Again, like everything looks good, everything sounds good, and just like the scope of everything was solid. But it just, again, as you said, just had that Shakespearean, just like that stage play essence, and it's just like, okay, now we're getting into the, Romeo and Juliet aspect of things, you know, and the Othello stuff. But it's just like, it just, sometimes you just need to take a step back and like, what's our film? Who are we catering for? Yes, we're catering to that, LGBTQ crowd, but also we're having promises of horror in there, and we're just gonna turn two people into zombies, and they're not fully zombies. They needed to do the whole, if we're gonna have the voodoo element, let's go all out. And like I said earlier, bring in a voodoo priestess, bring in a certain, bring in a side character to do something to help move the plot forward a little bit more, like this battle between, whoever, whatever the film, gave us. It could have been between Poodles and Minnie, or uh, Poodles, and or the other reveal, which I don't want to give away.
Yeah,
Have like a big battle they have to face first, and then do the reveal after they get rid of all the zombies, or break the curse, or whatever they have to do, and then have the reveal, and then the end the film as the end of the film. Um, it just felt, it just needed something extra there to make it a little bit like, there's the other crowd that we can cater for. And just like, again, it's just like, I get it. Like you said, I get it. I understand what they're going for, but it needed just that extra key ingredient, and it's just missing.
yeah. I just That's the only thing that I wanted was just more. I was expecting a little bit more. Um,
They could have had a musical number with the zombies, even
that
like
would have
as they're
been
killing
great.
them.
Yeah, no, like that. That would have been great.
Like that could
Or
have been
the
the whole set
zombies
piece.
had their own.
Yeah, that
I
could have been like the
wasn't
whole middle
expecting
before the
that.
reveal. Just have them like come up, and like the zombies start dancing, doing their thing, and then all the other characters, they're singing like, we're living, we're alive, we're here, all that stuff. The zombies are talking about death and dying and stuff, and like they're killing them off one by one, and like everyone's happy, and like killing and dying and stuff like that. And then you have the big reveal at the end, and then they do their quick sweep up as they do in the film, and like boom, there you go. It would have given it a little bit extra oomph.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Ian, any final thoughts?
I don't have any final thoughts. I think we kind of covered everything.
Yeah, we didn't really want to go into spoilers. I mean, there is certain spoilers, and we're trying not to, because it is, like as Ian said, it is still rather new, and we don't really want to spoil heavy everything, but we kind of skirted around things. But nonetheless, Ian, I think we're gonna call it on Big Easy Queens as our first stop on our Pride or Die marathon. I'm looking forward to what other picks we have. Well, I'm always looking forward to what choices we have, but what eventually
Yeah.
the one we land on. And I appreciate everyone for coming along on this another marathon. Um, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as we enjoy reviewing them and watching them. So we appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time here as we continue on the Pride or Die marathon here on Horror Night Oasis.